So when you're working with slabs, it's a good idea to do some planning ahead of time. It saves you time and it saves you frustration with the slabs. So this is a paper template I made. We've got a bunch of old poster paper in the studio up in the front. And this stuff you can cut. We have a paper cutter in the other room, but you can cut this to whatever shape you want. In this instance, I cut this kind of random, just gentle curve, and then I traced it and I cut it out 4 times. And I just used masking tape to tape it together and see what it would look like. I cut out some triangles, I cut out 4, it looks like I lost 1. And then I just played around with sticking these together. This ends up with this slightly curved shape with kind of a pyramid top. If I don't like how that's going together, I can trim some of this away and reattach it. And this takes 15 minutes to put together depending on what you're working on. Whereas with slabs, you have to let them dry, you have to roll them out, you have to smooth the surface, you have to prepare the clay. There's a lot more work to it. So I recommend that you use some of our paper and make some templates before you start to work. Now we also have a few templates that other people have made at various points. So some of these shapes, you can see they struggled a bit getting this shape. But some of these shapes are kind of made and laminated so that anybody can use them. I'm going to do something fairly simple here. I'm going to make myself some squares, but instead of having to go measure each one, I've got a ruler here. Instead of having to carefully measure each one, I'm just going to trace these templates. Now, one other thing I want you to notice is that I've got this already on a board on a piece of paper. And so when I cut these out, I'm not going to have to move them. They're going to stay put. Anytime I pick up my slab and move it around, I'm doing 2 things. One is I'm stretching it potentially out of shape. And the other is I'm stressing it a little bit. So the cracks that are developing there, and I'm kind of emphasizing them, but those can show up later on. And if you're wondering why your box is cracked in the middle, it may be because as you picked it up, it did one of those and then you just tried to push it back into even. So the fewest amount of times you can move it, the better. So I'm going to lay my template down here, and I'm going to use that as a guide for my ruler because my template's not quite as big. And then I'm going to use a fettling knife to slice a nice straight line. I'm going to do the same over here. And I may not have quite enough clay here to do a full box, but I've got at least enough clay to do much of a box. Oops. And then I'm going to slice that way, move my template. And you can see as I get to the edge of those cuts, they shift just a little bit. But I've got the basic shape that I need to have here. So I'm cutting these out of freshly cut wet clay. Yeah, I'm going to do this other edge, but I'm going to need to, they're not quite big enough. I've run out of clay. So generally, if you're making a box, just a this size box, 3 or 4 inches square, you're going to need to roll out clay a few times so that you have enough pieces and enough pieces without cracking, enough pieces not right at the edge. So I've got some more to roll before I put this together, but what I do want to show you with this set here is how to create a bevel. So this tool here, we've got a bunch of these YM tools, but there's also a small orange one floating around. Sometimes in different studios you see slightly different shapes. But basically what they are is they've got a corner here, usually with a wire, although sometimes the metal, it's a piece of metal that's the whole thing, and that corner is going to create a bevel. So I've got a 90-degree bevel for the, an edge that goes straight together, and a, 60 or so degree bevel that can be used for shapes that are a little bit more open, maybe something like that. So I'm going to create a bevel over here on this side, and I'm going to try to get it at an angle that I can see and you can see. I think this way will work. So I'm going to hold my bevel tool parallel to the board here, and I'm going to drag it across and through my clay, trying to keep myself fairly steady. I'm kind of catching on the particle board here. But that's created this nice even bevel all the way through. I can do the same thing over here. You can also do this cut when it's leather hard. The clay will cut a little bit differently, but if you're finding that you're sort of sticking, you might wait till it's just a bit drier. So now I've got a bevel cut through most of my outsides. The one place I didn't cut my bevel is on the inside, and I'm actually going to wait to cut my inside bevels on these pieces because if I pick these up, I do some of that distorting as I move. So I'm going to let them dry up a bit before I do those bevel cuts. Eventually we'll score and slip these bevels and attach them together. My measurements are going to be important at that point, and the steadiness of my bevel cutting will help determine whether these go together evenly or not. Thanks.